Labor Day weekend, relatively crime-free. The Growth Management Department is looking ahead, and Senator Dan Wolf says summer on Cape Cod was a good one. Details on this episode of Barnstable Today. It's Tuesday, September 4th, 2012. I'm Sarah Colvin. Labor Day weekend 2012 has come and gone. We're now in the last few weeks of summertime. Barnstable was bustling over the holiday weekend. Chief of Police Paul MacDonald says it was a relatively crime-free holiday.
People, there's going to be a certain percentage of individuals that are going to cause problems. And we're prepared to handle that, but they're very minor in nature, so we really don't worry too much about that. But it will be interesting to talk to the Hyannis BID, the Hyannis Chamber of Commerce, and the Hyannis Civic Association, just to get their gauge, their feel, on how the summer went. We have a meeting at the end of this week with our command staff to go over what we did and what we can do better next summer.
Chief MacDonald says the meeting with police and bar and restaurant owners earlier in the season was a big help.
The licensees not letting the individuals down who consistently cause problems week after week after week. Once you cause a problem down there, they were trespassed, and then the word got from one establishment to the next establishment, and those individuals just simply weren't allowed to party on Main Street and cause a problem. So that made a big difference. That and, of course, the two officers that we have represent us on the licensee board bring the problems right to the licensee board. So everybody did a great job, and the level of cooperation was there, and it's really paying off.
And the presence of the street crime unit was also a plus.
18 months ago, we changed the way we patrol. More directed patrols, hotspot patrols with the Uniform Patrol Division. They're down on Main Street all the time with the bike patrols, the foot patrols, the motorcycle patrols. With that, the combination with the new Hyannis station right there in the middle of Main Street, which you cannot miss, that coupled with the street crime unit, who during the summertime they can't leave Main Street, has made that's made a huge difference.
And now that it's September, the new computer forensics team is in place and at work on Main Street, directly above the Hyannis station.
Labor Day weekend, they're moving furniture in, they're getting the computers ready. They've already had some cases dropped off to them, so they will start getting to work as soon as they're set up. Hopefully, it will be completed, and I know the doors will be open this morning, 8 o'clock, so other departments will be bringing in their merchandise, their evidence, so we will be able to take a look at it.
MacDonald says the computer forensics crime team will be a big help in solving crimes across the Cape.
Anything, every major crime that we deal with now, there always has a digital component to it, either through cell phones, through computers, and these specialized trained officers will have the ability to go in there to forensically dissect those computers and cell phones and take any information they need off those computers, whether it be child porn, whether it be a drug dealer's transactions, whether it be phones, pictures, whatever the investigators need, these officers will be able to get it for them, providing they either have a consent or they have a search warrant to go with the equipment.
The Computer Forensics Lab was funded by a grant from the Cape Cod Regional Law Enforcement Council. As students head back to school and begin a new year, the Growth Management Department is also sharpening its pencils and getting down to business planning for the future. Growth Management Director Joanne Miller-Buntich says the department is beginning work on a number of projects.
Bicycle accommodation strategy, which of course has been worked on through many departments in the town, and so we're going to take a look at that and see what we might need to do to organize that effort in a text or document better, so we can be eligible for funding and have it at the ready for grant writing and things like that. We are also working on a housing component for downtown Hyannis. There's a program available to gateway cities called the Housing Development Incentive Program that helps gateway communities. There's 24 gateway communities in the state. Attract funding for market rate housing, because there's a recognition that these gateway communities, among them are Lowell, New Bedford, Springfield, Chicopee, places like that, and people say, well, why is Hyannis in there? And there's a criteria set up by the legislation, and we just make it. And of course, it's a bootstrap program, so our idea is to use it to not be a gateway city any longer. But at any rate, market rate housing is recognized to be a need in the town and city centers of these cities, because there's plenty of the deed-restricted and affordable housing in these areas already.
Buntich says parks will also be a major focus.
We don't have an organized parks plan, so we're going to set that up and take a look, a traditional planning look at inventory, what's existing, analysis, do perhaps some public meetings, we think, to understand what people feel about parks and how they feel about parks and how they want their parks to be used, and we'll create an implementation strategy from that. Once again, always our idea is to, of course, hear from the public and the residents and the users of these proposed facilities. That's a big component of our planning effort. But then the end product, again, helps us be ready for grant writing and things of that nature.
Input from the public will be key as the town examines its parks. Cape and Island State Senator Dan Wolf says the 2012 summer season on Cape Cod was a good one.
Last thing, of course, you can gauge how well the businesses are doing to some degree by how much grousing there is about traffic congestion. And I think probably it was a banner year relative to people being here, and that does equate to some inconvenience on the roads. But I always encourage people to compare it with any metropolitan travel experience, Boston included, that we worry when there's a 1 or 2 light cycle delay on a busy road in the summer, but it really isn't that bad. And I will say, I think it did add to the coffers of those in business here relative to getting through the long winter and then emerging unscathed for next summer. So it was, I think, a very good summer season.
Wolf says early numbers indicate some economic growth.
I did recently touch bases with Wendy Northcross over at the Cape Cod Chamber of Commerce, and they are starting to get some good data in, and I think an encouraging sign. Room occupancy rates for July, which I think is, we don't have August yet for obvious reasons, but in July it was about 80%, which is consistent with previous years. But the good news is they were able to get more revenue. The average revenue per room went up about 22% in July, and in June the average rate per room went up about 9%. So, in the business world we look at 2 metrics. One is how full are we, and the other is what kind of revenue can we get. And I think it's an encouraging sign, because if there is some elasticity relative to being able to raise prices a little bit, that means in the business world that there is better demand, stronger demand, and I think we did see that. And I think when the restaurant numbers and the retail sales numbers come in, we're going to see the same. And then we have other metrics to look at. Entrance to the national park is a big one. It'll be interesting to see what those numbers look like. As you said, the weather was so good that I expect that those numbers will be very strong. And we'll look at bridge crossings, the sensitive subject of bridge crossings. We do have more construction coming up there, and we're certainly have our eyes on that. But bridge crossings is another metric we look at.
Another sector Wolf says is important to travel and tourism here on Cape is the international traveler. He says there were many in our region this year.
Cape and Islands are such a strong international name that a lot of it has to do with the strength or weakness of the U.S. dollar relative to other currency, and also how other economies are doing. And we did, I think, this year have a very healthy international travel season, and those relative, the fluctuations in the dollar, but historically the relative weakness of the dollar actually allows people from all over the world to come and enjoy the Cape and Islands. And because we are, when you look at the United States from afar, one of the premier destinations, that really has helped us as well. So you do hear different languages. There's more diversity, more cultural mixing. It's really an exciting place to be.
And of course, Labor Day weekend is not only a time to say goodbye to summer and hello to school books, it's also a time to thank those who work hard here in America.
Labor Day. It was Labor Day yesterday. And I was the chair, or am still the chair now, of the Labor and Workforce Development Committee up at the State House. And I would not end today's conversation without noting Labor Day. It was a little bit sad to me. I looked at the cover of every newspaper I could find yesterday. I didn't see a single article about labor, the history of labor, the role of labor, celebrating labor, and it was Labor Day, which isn't only the benchmark and bookend of our busy season here on the Cape, but it does speak to the issue that you and I have spoken so many times about since we've been doing this show, which is the middle class and the role of labor, and how do we energize that sector of our economy and the people that have been hurt so much in the last 4 or 5 years. So I didn't want to leave today without, big shout out to those folks who worked hard this summer, and my commitment, my continuing commitment to see what we can do to strengthen that important part of our population and our economy.
With Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Colvin.